Sicily, July 1943. A narrow street in some forgotten village. The Tiger tank rounds the corner. 56 tons of German engineering. A 4 million Reiches marks worth of precision machined steel plate, and the most feared gun in Europe worth the modern equivalent of $500,000 or more. Its 88mm cannon has already eliminated 3 American tanks this morning. The crew inside believes they're invincible. They're about to be proven wrong by a weapon that cost less than a decent pair of boots. But that Tiger crew has no idea they're about to become a statistic in the most lopsided cost-benefit analysis in military history, and the weapon that kills them. It almost didn't exist at all. Washington, D.C., spring 1942. 24-year-old Lieutenant Edward Uhl reports to Colonel Leslie Skinner's office at Ordnance Corps headquarters. Fresh out of Lehigh University with a degree in engineering physics, Uhl expects a routine assignment. Instead, Skinner hands him the M10 grenade and delivers an impossible order. Turn this into a rocket. Make it something a soldier can fire from his shoulder. You have weeks. The challenge is brutal. The grenade's shaped charge works perfectly. A copper-line and conical explosive that focuses detonation energy into a superheated jet capable of punching through solid steel. But how do you propel it toward a target without burning the operator's face off? Rocket exhaust reaches temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees. Mount it on a soldier's shoulder and you'd cook him alive. Uhl spends days sketching designs, tripod mounts, complicated trigger mechanisms. Nothing works. The fundamental problem remains, how do you shield a human being from rocket propulsion at point-blank range? Then, on an ordinary afternoon, Uhl walks past a scrap metal pile behind the workshop. There, among discarded equipment and construction debris, sits a 5 FD length of steel tubing, 60 mm in diameter, open at both ends. He picks it up, weighs it. The diameter matches the M10 grenade almost perfectly. In that moment, Lieutenant Edward Uhl solves one of World War II's most critical tactical problems. Put the tube on a soldier's shoulder with the rocket inside, he'll later recall, and away it goes. The solution is so simple it seems obvious in hindsight. The tube doesn't shield the operator from the rocket. It channels the exhaust out the back away from the shooter. The rocket burns for 1/50th of a second. By the time it exits the front of the tube, the motor is already spent. No flames reach the operator, no protective equipment needed, just a hollow tube, a trigger mechanism, and basic iron sights. But there's one problem. Uhl has no idea if it will actually work. Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, May 1942. The morning air is thick with anticipation and skepticism. Multiple weapons manufacturers have gathered for competitive trials of new anti-tank systems. They've brought sophisticated spigot mortars, complex firing mechanisms, expensive prototypes that took months to develop. Skinner and Uhl arrive with a crude steel tube, improvised sights bent from a wire coat hanger, and a handful of rocket-propelled grenades. The test is straightforward. Hit a moving tank at range. Under field conditions, the mortars fire first. Elaborate launching systems hurl projectiles downrange. Most miss entirely. The few that land near the target fail to hit with any consistency. These are sophisticated weapons developed by experienced manufacturers with substantial budgets. None of them can hit a moving target. Uhl steps forward with his 5 FD tube. He shoulders the weapon, squints through the coat hanger, sights, and fires. The rocket streaks downrange in a trail of smoke and flame. Direct hit. The shaped charge detonates against the tank's hull with a sharp crack. He reloads, fires again. Another hit. The military observers exchange glances. This crude prototype, assembled in days from scrap materials, is outperforming every sophisticated weapon system at the trial. One of those observers is Brigadier General Gladden Barnes, Chief of Ordnance Research and Development. Barnes watches the demonstration, then does something unexpected. He walks over to Uhl, takes the launcher, and asks to fire it himself. First shot, direct hit on a moving tank. Barnes fires every remaining rocket they brought. Every single round finds its mark. When the last rocket detonates, Barnes turns to his staff officers. How many can you deliver? How fast? Skinner doesn't hesitate. 5,000 units, 1 month. Do it. General Electric receives the production contract that afternoon. 30 days to deliver 5,000 shoulder-fired rocket launchers. No existing blueprints, no production line, no time to establish conventional manufacturing processes. They deliver the order with 89 minutes to spare. The final design is almost insultingly simple. A smooth bore, steel tube 54 in long, a wooden shoulder stock, a pistol grip mounted below the firing tube. Simple iron sights, a trigger connected to a dry cell battery that sends current through a wire trailing from the rocket's tail. Total weight 13. Total parts count fewer than 20. Manufacturing cost approximately $19 per unit. Compare that to the weapons it would face. A German Panzer Y4 cost 103,000 Reichsmarks, roughly $25,000 in wartime currency. A Tiger War heavy tank cost 250,000 Reichsmarks, the equivalent of around $60,000 then, but worth over $500,000 in today's money. The Tiger II, the King Tiger, carried a price tag of 321,000 Reichsmarks, worth the modern equivalent of over $600,000. The most expensive, sophisticated armored vehicles ever built, threatened by a $19 tube. But cost meant nothing if the weapon didn't work in combat. And the M1's first real test would be a disaster that nearly ended the program before it began, November 8, 1942. Operation Torch. American forces storm the beaches of North Africa. Hundreds of M1 launchers go ashore with the invasion force. The weapon that performed flawlessly at Aberdeen Proving Ground is about to face its first combat trial. The night before the landings, General Dwight Eisenhower receives a shocking report from a subordinate. None of the troops, not a single soldier, has received any training on the new rocket launcher. They don't know how to load it, don't know how to aim it, don't understand the weapon's effective range or penetration capabilities. The Army just landed thousands of men on a hostile shore and handed them an unfamiliar weapon with zero instruction. The results are predictable. Soldiers fumble with loading procedures. The M6 rocket's battery ignition system proves notoriously unreliable in desert conditions. Primers fail in heat and sand. Contacts corrode. Connections fail. When rockets do fire, untrained operators miss at ranges where the weapon should be deadly accurate. Some units report success, but many bazookas misfire at critical moments or fail to function entirely. Worse, German forces capture several intact launchers in early skirmishes. Wehrmacht intelligence officers examine the weapons with intense interest. Within months, German engineers will reverse engineer the design and create their own version, the Panzer Schreck, with an 88mm warhead that penetrates armor even more effectively than the American original. By February 1943, after the fighting ends in Tunisia, reports from the front paint a grim picture. Too many failures, too many misfires, too little training. The weapon's potential remains largely unrealized. The M1 bazooka's reputation is badly damaged. Military planners begin discussing whether the design needs fundamental revision. Then Sicily happens. Sicily, July 1943. American forces push inland from the beaches. German resistance is fierce. Panzer units counterattack, trying to drive the invaders back into the sea. Among those German units, a small contingent from the 504 Heavy Panzer Battalion, fewer than 20 Tigervine heavy tanks deployed to the island. They're the most feared armor in the German arsenal. For American infantry, encountering a Tiger is the nightmare scenario. The Tiger's frontal armor, 100 mm of hardened steel, can shrug off every anti-tank gun in the American arsenal at anything beyond point-blank range. The 88mm cannon can eliminate an American Sherman tank from 1,500 yards away. The Tiger crews know they're nearly invincible. They advance with confidence, their commanders certain that American infantry pose no serious threat. A narrow village street. Morning light slanting through dust and smoke. A young American soldier crouches in the shadow of a destroyed building. An M101 launcher resting on his shoulder. His loader has inserted a rocket and connected the firing wire. The Tiger rumbles into view. 56 tons of German steel commanders hatch open, driver peering through his forward vision port. The American knows the math. The M6A1 rocket can penetrate 3 to 4 in of armor under ideal conditions. The Tiger's frontal plate is 4 in thick. His rocket might penetrate if it hits perfectly perpendicular, if the steel plate has no hardening irregularities, if the shaped charge forms correctly. But the Tiger's sides are only 3.22 in. And there's one other weak point. The driver's vision port, armored, but not as heavily as the main glass's plate. A narrow opening that allows the driver to see forward during combat operations. The American soldier aims, not at the Tiger's front, not at its sides, at the tiny rectangular vision port in the center of the hull. He pulls the trigger. The rocket motor ignites. Smoke and flame erupt from both ends of the launch tube. The 3.4 pounds projectile streaks forward, spinning slightly from imperfect fin stabilization. 100 yards, 75-50. According to one commonly reported account from Sicily, the rocket slipped through the narrow driver's vision port for 110,000th of a second. Nothing happens. Then the shaped charge detonates. The copper liner collapses inward, focusing explosive pressure into a superheated jet of molten metal traveling at thousands of feet per second. The jet punches through the thin armor, protecting the vision port through the glax plate behind it into the crew compartment. The Tiger's engine dies. Smoke pours from the vision port. The commander and surviving crew members bail out, abandoning 56 tons of Germany's finest armor engineering. That should have been the end of the story. One lucky shot in Sicily, a feel-good moment for the history books. It wasn't. Whether the account is precisely accurate or battlefield legend, one thing becomes clear in Sicily. American soldiers can neutralize Tigers with bazookas if they're patient, skilled, and lucky. By late 1943, word spreads through American units. The bazooka works not reliably against frontal armor. The M6A3 rocket can only penetrate 3.5 to 4 in under ideal conditions, and German tanks frequently feature thicker plating. But side shots are lethal, rear shots are devastating, and in the chaos of close combat, opportunities appear. The Army rushes an improved version into production. The M9 launcher addresses the M1's most critical flaw, reliability. The new design features a two-piece breakdown construction that reduces carry length to 31.5 in. A new magneto ignition system replaces the temperamental battery, solving misfires in cold weather. The sight is upgraded from simple iron to a General Electric T43 aperture sight. Most importantly, the M6A3 rocket features a blunt rounded nose instead of the pointed original. Testing reveals that pointed rockets deflect off sloped armor at shallow angles. The rounded nose ensures more consistent detonation regardless of impact angle. Production accelerates. By the end of World War II, nearly 500,000 bazooka launchers reach American forces. Tank crews carry them for close defense. Paratroopers strap them to their legs before jumping into the darkness over Normandy. Infantry squads learn to position teams in hedgerows and rubble, waiting for German armor to expose vulnerable side armor. But effectiveness isn't universal. German tank designers, having captured and studied bazookas in North Africa, implement countermeasures. By mid-1944, 70% of German tanks on the Eastern Front feature Schussen, spaced armor plates mounted several inches away from the hull. Originally designed to counter Soviet anti-tank rifles, they later proved effective against bazookas as well. The air gap disrupts shaped charge jets, reducing penetration by 40 to 60%. The Tiger, Panther, and King Tiger tanks all receive progressively thicker armor. The Panther's frontal plate reaches nearly 4 in. The King Tiger's frontal armor exceeds 7 in critical areas. Against these monsters, the bazooka becomes largely ineffective from the front. But American soldiers adapt. They don't fight fair, they fight smart. Normandy, June 1944. The bocage, ancient French hedge, creates a landscape perfectly suited to bazooka ambush tactics. Narrow lanes sink between earth and BMS crowned with centuries-old vegetation. Thick brush conceals soldiers completely. German tank commanders can't see threats until they're already in the kill zone. An American bazooka team takes position behind a hedgerow launcher loaded, spare rockets within reach. They hear the tank before they see it. The distinctive rumble of a gasoline Maybach engine. The clatter of steel tracks on cobblestones. The tank appears around the bend. Not a Tiger. Those are rare and usually held in reserve, but a Panzer IV or a Stu-G assault gun. Still dangerous, still lethal to unarmored infantry. The American team waits. Discipline, patience. The tank advances past their position, exposing its thin side armor. At 30 yards, the gunner squeezes the trigger. The rocket hits just below the turret ring. Penetration. The shaped charge jet enters the crew compartment. Smoke. Fire. The tank jerks to a halt, engine racing, then dies. The crew evacuates through emergency hatches. 30 seconds later, the bazooka team is vanished into the hedge. This scene repeats itself hundreds of times across Normandy. American infantry learned that the bazooka isn't a dueling weapon. You don't face a tank head-in and trade shots. You ambush. You wait for vulnerable moments. Side exposures, rear shots, targets climbing steep hills that expose thin belly armor. The psychological impact on German tank crews is substantial. They can't see the threats, can't predict where American rocket teams are hiding. Every narrow street, every hedger, every pile of rubble could conceal soldiers with shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons. The Tiger may cost the modern equivalent of $500,000, but it takes only one lucky shot from a $19 weapon to turn it into 56 tons of scrap metal. France, September 1944. Major Charles Carpenter is fed up. He's a liaison pilot flying a tiny Piper L4 Grasshopper observation plane for General Patton's 4th Armored Division. His job, scout enemy positions, call in artillery, spot for advancing American columns. It's critical work. It's also suicidal. The L4 is unarmed, fabric-covered, barely capable of 100 miles per hour. German anti-aircraft gunners treat it like target practice. Already 49 L4 aircraft have been shot down over France. Carpenter watches fellow pilots go down in flames and decides he's not dying without fighting back. His solution is insane, brilliantly, impossibly insane. He mounts 6 bazooka launchers onto his L4, 3 per side attached to the wing struts. No aiming mechanism beyond pointing the entire aircraft at the target. No stabilization, just 6 rockets and a pilot crazy enough to dive at German armor in a fabric-covered observation plane. His crew nicknamed the modified aircraft Rosie the Rocketer. Carpenter's first combat test comes during a reconnaissance mission near Ariort. Below him, German armor moves toward American positions. Panther tanks, armored cars, infantry support vehicles. He banks the L4 into a shallow dive, lines up a Panther, and triggers the electrical firing system. All 6 rockets launch simultaneously. The recoil nearly flips the tiny plane. Carpenter wrestles the controls, pulling out of the dive seconds before impact. Below, 3 rockets miss entirely. 2 strike close enough to damage tracks. 1 hits the Panther's engine deck. The tank stops. Smoke pours from the engine compartment. The crew evacuates. Over the following weeks, Carpenter refinances his technique. He learns to fire rockets in pairs rather than salvos, improving accuracy and reducing catastrophic recoil. He perfects the art of diving on armor from unexpected angles, launching rockets and vanishing before German gunners can respond. By the end of September, Carpenter is officially credited with destroying or disabling 4 German tanks, multiple armored cars, and dozens of infantry positions. The press loves the story. Grasshopper pilot becomes tank killer. News articles feature photos of the Diminutive L4 bristling with rocket launchers. Carpenter becomes a minor celebrity, but his real contribution isn't the handful of German vehicles he destroys. It's the concept he proves that aircraft armed with rockets can provide close air support against armor. The idea will evolve into the helicopter gunships of Korea and Vietnam. The A-10 Warthog's precision strike capability and modern attack helicopters mounting sophisticated anti-tank missiles. All because a liaison pilot got tired of being shot at and decided to fight back with 6 bazookas and a fabric-covered observation plane. Wehrmacht intelligence officers examine captured bazookas with professional respect. The weapon is crude, the manufacturing is simplistic, but the fundamental design is brilliant. By late 1943, German engineers developed the Raketen Panzerbuka, quickly shortened to Panzer Schreck, Tank Terror. The German version scales up the American concept to 88 mm, matching their legendary anti-aircraft gun caliber. The larger warhead penetrates up to 8 in of vertical armor, but there's a cost. The Panzer Schreck weighs 21 pounds, nearly double the M1 bazooka's weight. More critically, the larger rocket motor produces dangerous backblast that requires a blast shield to protect the operator. The shield adds weight, bulk, and complexity. German soldiers nickname it Orphan Rohr Stovepipe. The Germans also developed the Panzerfaust, a single-shot disposable rocket launcher, even simpler than the bazooka. At 30 m range, the Panzerfaust can penetrate 7 in of armor. Production is cheap and fast. Germany manufactures over 6 million units during the final years of the war. But here's the irony. The Germans created shaped-charge anti-tank weapons because American soldiers with $19 bazookas were neutralizing armor that cost the modern equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce. The existence of the bazooka forced Germany to divert engineering resources, manufacturing capacity, and strategic thinking toward countermeasures. A throwaway weapon designed from scrap materials in a matter of weeks fundamentally altered German tank doctrine for the rest of the war. By May 1945, the war in Europe ends. Military planners expect the bazooka to fade into obsolescence like most wartime expedient weapons. It doesn't. Korea 1950. North Korean T-34 tanks roll south across the 38th parallel. American forces caught unprepared scramble to respond. They're equipped with M9 and M9A1 bazookas, the same 2.36 in caliber weapons used against Germany 5 years earlier. The T-34 features 90 mm of frontal armor. The bazooka's 4-in penetration is inadequate. American soldiers fire rockets at point-blank range and watch them ricochet harmlessly off Soviet-designed armor. Panic spreads through American ranks. The weapon that worked against German tanks is useless against Russian ones. The Army rushes the M20 Super Bazooka into production. 3.5 in caliber, 9 pounds rocket, 11 in of armor penetration. The M20 arrives in Korea by late 1950, turning the tables against North Korean armor. But the original bazooka, the $19 solution to an impossible problem, remains in American inventory until 1992, 50 years of service. Longer than the Thompson submachine gun, longer than the M14 rifle, longer than weapons that cost 10 times as much and received far more development resources. The last bazookas don't retire because they stopped working. They retire because the world moved on. Modern anti-tank weapons feature guided missiles, thermal sights, programmable warheads. The simple tube-fired rocket can't compete with computer-assisted targeting and tandem charge warheads. But for half a century, the bazooka served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. Special operations units carry suppressed variants into the 21st century. The fundamental design, put a rocket in a tube, point it at the enemy, pull the trigger, proves too effective to abandon. Sicily, 1943. That narrow street, the Tiger tank, immobilized by a rocket. Whether through the driver's vision port or another weak point, the result was the same. The German crew probably never learned what hit them. One moment, their nearly invincible heavy tank dominated the battlefield. The next, smoke and chaos as a shaped charge jet penetrated their armor. They were neutralized by a weapon that weighed 13 pounds and cost less than a decent pair of boots. The Tiger I cost 250,000 Reichsmarks to build, worth over $500,000 in today's money, required 300,000 man-h hours of skilled labor, consumed strategic resources Germany couldn't afford to waste, needed specialized parts, precision manufacturing, experienced crews. The bazooka cost $19. General Electric built the first 5,000 in 1 month. Any soldier could learn to fire it in an afternoon. When it broke, you threw it away and grabbed another. This is the paradox of weapons development. Sometimes sophisticated engineering loses to brutal simplicity. Sometimes the most expensive solution is defeated by the cheapest alternative.